Welcome back to another episode of the Fieldhouse Report with Cougar Carlson and Drew Kalahar. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And Drew, tell me how you doing this week.
I'm doing great. As you can tell, my background's a little different. I'm at my in-laws right now. We're getting ready to go on a trip to Florida to visit some family, take a quick trip to Disney World. But I'm always having a great week when both men's and women's hoops get the job done on the court. How's it going with you?
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way after some key wins this week by both teams. I'm just coming back from actually watching my daughter do some gymnastics, rushing
Nice.
back to get to my house so that we could do this podcast. So, yeah. This week with women's basketball, they defeated Pepperdine Thursday 57-49, which kind of turned out to be somewhat of a meaningless game as it didn't really propel them to another spot within the West Coast Conference tournament. However, every win is certainly helpful anytime you're trying to get a bid going into the NCAA tournament. Mendez led all scorers with 14 points. Tara Wallach, stud, 11 points and 10 rebounds for her fifth double-double this season. And Villa had 11 points just as well. And they held the Waves, Pepperdine Waves, to 29% from the field and out-rebounded them 47-39.
Yeah, it's what good teams do, right? It was a night that we weren't shooting the ball well, but what do you fall back on when you're not shooting the ball well on the road? Defense and rebounding, and that's exactly what they did, out-rebounding the Waves 47-39. So, yeah, really proud of the way that they played. Pretty even scoring across the board as we've seen, but you fall back on your stars at this point in the season. Mendez, Wallach, and Villa all getting the job done with double-digit points.
Yeah, I think what it shows is the balance that this team has. And obviously Mendez being able to step up as a freshman, for Colville not being able to play right now. She's played some tremendous minutes and really has given the Cougs everything they've needed and become a starter for them, and it's just been exciting to watch the team chemistry that they have and the willingness that they have to really play for each other. And at the end of the
Yep.
day, that's what it's really all about.
Yeah. You're sitting here and you're looking at the youth on this team too. I mean, obviously this year I can see a path. I mean, at-large berth is out of the picture with how high they are in the net rankings, but with their position in the WCC tournament, they got a shot. But outside of that, the youth on this team with Wallach being the lone senior is really exciting. I think next year could be a really special year for Cami Ether's team.
Yeah, I think the Washington State Cougs could be quite special. And I still think they have something left to prove this year, and they can do some damage in this West Coast Conference tourney. With the first quarterfinal game being played Sunday, March 9th. It depends on how the seating goes, but either at 11:30 or 2 p.m. on ESPN+. Do not forget to tune in to that game next Sunday.
Yep. Yeah, I believe with where they're at, they could either play St. Mary's, which is the most likely with them being the 6th seed. If they could play Pacific, Pepperdine, or San Diego, but both Pepperdine and San Diego would have a uphill road to play. And obviously, I hope that's how it pans out because that would be Pepperdine or San Diego playing their third game in 3 nights, which is a tough draw with us being fresh at that point. But yeah, really, all you got to do is you got to beat one of those teams. You got to beat Gonzaga and you're right in that WCC championship game.
Yeah, and obviously the two top seeds between Gonzaga and Portland, they're no slouch. They're, obviously Cammy's going to have to do some work this week in preparation for any of the teams that they face. Just the only thing that always leaves me concerned as a former coach is the time off in between. Sometimes it can be helpful, particularly with Colville potentially coming back for this week's game. I think we could have some more depth on the bench, and that'll be helpful for the team, and maybe that'll be a plus.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, you saw it in the college football playoff with Oregon. I mean, they got the bye, and we're having to play a team that had already played one game. But sometimes it's that team that's already played one game that's sort of already at the speed, and it takes a while for that team that's had all that time off to sort of catch up and get back into the speed of the game.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Moving on to the men's hoops team, who had 2 victories this week. The first one coming over San Diego on Thursday night, senior night, 93-86. And then the second one coming over Pepperdine, 90-83. Cougar Carlson, what were your thoughts on the men's hoops team this week?
Yeah, obviously in the first half against San Diego, it was really exciting. I think we shot 57% from beyond the arc, but allowed season high 61 points in the second half. So I think we were up by 30 by half, and then we
Yeah,
allowed them to creep back in and nearly steal it. Uh, but what it tells me is that it's about sustaining that defensive pressure. And that's kind of a mentality thing. And you saw David Riley own some of this in his recent interviews where he said, we might have skipped a few steps, or I see where we skipped things. I know Cougar Nation's really kind of like, oh, we need to get a new coach or this or that, or making different things on the message boards. I think we need to pump our brakes. I'll say this. When Smith left to go to Stanford, I actually wanted Riley first as our first head coach. And he was my first choice. And it was because I watched what he did to dismantle our team when they played in the NIT at home in
yeah,
Beasley. And I was there watching it live. And I watched how he coached. I watched how he coached his players. I watched how he was listening to his coaching staff for input. He's very reflective and he makes changes amidst the game. And he's going to own when mistakes are made. And I think it's a healthy thing. If we're talking about this year 3, then I'll say there's some problems, right? But I don't feel that from Riley. I have a lot of confidence in him, and I think this team can still do some serious damage moving forward.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see, this team is very hot and cold, and when they're hot, they're tough to beat. I mean, that team that we watched in the first half on Thursday night. Now, granted, it's San Diego, not a great team, but it reminded me a lot watching a lot of those games in November and December of this year. The ball movement was great. Defense had so much energy, fighting for boards all the time on offense and defense. It was really reminiscent. I mean, kicking back with a 30-point lead of so many of those games at the beginning of the season where we looked loose, carefree, we're hitting shots, we're making great passes. And then the second half started, and you started to see the same problems that we've seen all season. We started to turn them over. We started to loosen up on defense. And so it's just that consistency, right? And I do think that comes when you're building program, is you just have some moments of inconsistency. And to your point, I think Riley is a good coach. His track record gives me no reason to, not believe that he can get the job done here. And I think giving him a season or two now, like you said, if we're 3 seasons into this and we're still seeing these kind of performances, then I'd be concerned. But yeah, all around, I think there's some hope for the future.
Yeah. And I mean, going into the Pepperdine game, obviously they narrowly beat them too. It was definitely, again, a tale of two halves. And most of that came from defense, just as it did kind of from San Diego. You see in the first half that they can really kind of crack down the way they hedge screens, the way they fight over the top. There's a mentality difference between both halves that seems to happen. And I think they're comfortable with the idea, which is kind of what happened in both games, will allow our offense to help us versus locking them up and letting that feed your offense in transition
Right.
points. So,
Right.
but I would just say this. As far as this game goes, we have Nick Calmes, who is our leading scorer, was averaging 15 points before this game. He only had 10 points in the game, but I don't think he had any points until I can't even remember how many minutes left. It would have been
Yeah.
like something like the fourth quarter based on when he started to kind of turn it on. And I think he was actually engaged in a different way. And it actually made it exciting watching him want to facilitate and create open shots for his team. But I also, again, the defense is where I thought we could be more consistent.
Yeah. Okay. So I have kind of a question for you, because this is one that I've been pondering myself. At the beginning of the season, Calmes had the ability to slash like no other Coug I've seen in a little while. Like making a move on that first guy and finding a way to finish the rim or make a nice pass to somebody else who's wide open. It seems like as the season has progressed, he has maybe lost a step, or defenses have adjusted to him and are playing him slightly differently. I don't know if that's something that you've noticed, but what do you think is happening there? Because he's definitely not able to get to the rim in the same way he was able to at the beginning of the season.
I think it could obviously go both ways. I think one thing, you could always have your coach that says, well, we're maybe relying too much on this, and he kind of needs to
Right.
hold him back a little bit. I, I don't know if it's defense, because you can see in certain aspects of his game yesterday that he has the ability to drive and take those shots and attack the rim, which is what he's known for. What's different is when he's coming around those corners, and now I'm going back to that Gonzaga game in Beasley, but I'm
Yeah.
watching him kind of come off the screens, or anybody come off the screens, and every Zag player seems to be right there packing that space so that we can't drive. And that was the difference to me. I felt like we needed more interior play from someone that was a post presence. That's a couple weeks ago. We don't need to harp on that. But I think as it pertains to Calmise, it could be, Coach Riley's kind of holding him back a little bit, maybe. Or it's just he's finding that he needs more of his team to, elevate. He needs to elevate his team. And that could be something that he's consciously doing. I mean, and if he is, all the power to him, because I think yesterday when they played Pepperdine, he looked smooth. And it was not in the essence of him scoring, it was in the of him facilitating. And that was what was fun for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and not just him, but the whole rest of the team. 26 assists by the team as a whole, which is the most in a single game by a Coug team since 2018. So you got to go back 7 years. So definitely a good passing game for the Cougs. They improved to 13-1 when scoring 80 points or more. It just goes to that kind of as a reflection of the defense. But there's one moment that I want to talk about. I believe it came in the first half, and it was Isaiah Watts. And I don't know how many of our listeners have seen this video. I'll try to show it when I describe it here. But he points before he's about to play defense. He points at the camera, at the social media person for WSU, and he says, "Watch this." And then I kid you not, 3 seconds later, he steals the ball, tomahawk slams it, and then points at the camera and holds up the jersey like, "Yeah, you saw that." And it was just man, statement made right there.
Well, I think that goes to show, when the kind of savvy that a player like him does have, and
Yeah,
you see it in his
yeah,
style of play, you pick up on the tempo or the cadence of the guy who's dribbling the ball. And this is what I was teaching my players when I was coaching. Figure out what that tempo is. When they dribble up on the right side versus the left side, are they coming down the middle of the floor? Who are they looking for? Who's coming up on the, on the right wing or the left wing? And if he's watching film and anticipating that pass, he goes, I know what they're going to do here. Watch me steal this. And, you know, that's game film. That's savvy. That's intelligence. That's high IQ play. So those are kind of the fun things that you get to watch when you watch college basketball. That's just definitely, to me, a lot different than watching the NBA.
yep, totally agree. Well, the big story against Pepperdine was the bench play. Reeve Avers with 12 points, ND with 13 points, 2 blocks, Eric Struff with a double-double. So it was really nice to see some of our starters get a little bit of relief when we had those guys coming off the bench. Reeve Avers, that guy, I'm excited to see what his WSU career looks like, because when he catches and shoots, it just looks pure. I think we make too many comparisons sometimes to Cougar greats like Klay Thompson, but that catch, shoot, and release is that quick and that accurate. It's got to remind you of somebody a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of an eagle eye. We'll say that much at least. If nothing else, he's got an eagle eye, and again, it's just fun to watch. So
Yeah, totally.
yep.
Well, the nice thing too, the 20-4 run midway through the first half was really the difference in the game. But it was awesome to see us. And again, Pepperdine, not a great team, but nice to see every single time they made a run, we had an answer for it, and we kept a nice distance on them for most of the night. So nice way to wrap up the regular season. They'll finish the regular season with a record of 18-13, 8-10 in West Coast Conference play, and head into that 6th seed in the tournament, which is nice. 8 seed they had lost Pepperdine, it was possible that they fell all the way to the 8th seed, and that would have been a tough hill to climb. It's still not going to be easy, but we'll see what they can do. We'll see what they can do this upcoming week.
Yeah, I still think they have a lot to play for. They can certainly make a deep run, in my opinion. I think it's going to come down to defense and finding the right guy to make that shot and for them to be able to knock it down. Obviously, it's the case every time, but the defense is going to play a huge part in how they can propel moving forward and make some big noise going into this West Coast Conference tourney.
Agreed. We'll be watching. We'll be
Wait.
watching. All right. Spring is in the air, and so is the pigskin. Cougar football starting out with their first practice of spring ball. A few notables. Coach Rogers did confirm that Angel Johnson, the transfer running back from South Dakota State, will be out for the spring due to an injury. On top of that, spring football starting a little bit early this year with the portal opening on the 16th. Coach Rogers was intentional in setting up the schedule so that the spring game was 4 days before that, and stated after practice that the reality is that there's going to be some tough conversations that need to be had, and they're going to have to get in the portal and get some guys for some of those spots that are a little bit thinner.
Yeah, it's both like a challenging thing to hear, but also a healthy thing to hear because it shows that basically he's ready to, make moves if he needs to. I mean, you guys wanted the NIL transfer era to be like open season, open free agency all the time. And I think if a coach is talking to you like that, I think it just means that it's time to step up. And within what he's trying to accomplish and what he's trying to achieve, I have all the faith. If he says they need to get in the transfer portal, by all means, Jimmy Rogers, you have our blessing.
Totally agree. Another notable coming out of practice, I thought this was really, really interesting when Zevi Eckhouse, returning quarterback of Washington State, was asked after practice what the biggest difference was in practices with Dickert and Rogers. He stated, quote, "You're flying around at all times. There are really no breaks, which is good. No wasted time, no wasted minutes." What do you think about that quote from the QB1, probable QB?
It is time to get your season tickets, Cougs, because Jimmy Rogers is not wasting time. He is hungry. He is here, and he's ready to make some freaking noise. It's time to get in and get your seats, get into the Cougar Athletic Fund, get into the Cougar Collective, because Jimmy Rogers is here to bring us a national championship.
It really does. It seems silly that you're talking about the first spring practice. We're however many months, 9 months away from, or maybe not that many, 6 months away from the season opener. But it does. You set the tone with the way you practice, right? It sounds cheesy, but like if you're not practicing that way from the very beginning, it's not like you're suddenly going to change tones and start practicing harder when the fall comes. So I love to hear that. I love to hear that Rogers is wasting no time implementing some of the probably culture change that needs to happen a little bit from the previous coaching staff. So I love to hear that quote from Zed.
No, I think it's healthy, and I'm just excited. Whether or not they win a national championship in their first year, the fact that he is saying that we are on a different trajectory because I'm here, I have so much excitement and enthusiasm for. I think that he's going to propel us to new heights, and I'm excited to watch it and be there to watch it.
Yeah, man. I got to get my ducks in a row. We got to get our season tickets figured out. But I think we're going to get 9 this year, so we're going to be quite the big crew. Anybody that's in section 23, let me know, because that's where we're at every year. So come and say hi for sure.
Well, and who knows, maybe I'll join Drew specifically this year and moving forward and getting in those season tickets so that we can be together. So, yeah.
Awesome. The other piece of Cougar football news is that Kyle Williams was at the Combine at Lucas Oil Stadium. The man ran a 4.40, not too bad of a time, and greatly raised his draft stock. The quote that I heard that was awesome is that it says Kyle Williams also impressed ESPN's Jordan Reed, an NFL draft and college football analyst. He said Jalen Noel out of Iowa State and Kyle Williams out of Washington State have both been excellent on the field drills. 2 of the better wide receivers at the Senior Bowl as well. As an NFL draft prospect, Williams is currently graded at a 6.2 on NFL.com with the description that will be an eventual average NFL starter. That grade places him 15th as a number 15 wide receiver in the 2025 NFL draft. So really excited about what Kyle Williams is doing. He's such a great representative of Washington State University. And with the work he's put in, I think he's creeping up people's draft boards.
I know he is. That average talk is just that talk. It's crap. He's not going to be average. He's going to be above average, and he's going to represent Wazoo in the best way possible. So, Kyle Williams, do your thing, buddy. Keep representing Wazoo, but ultimately go and get yours, man. You deserve it.
It does make me think as I'm watching the country take notice of him and draft experts take notice of him. How did we not use this man more this last season? I mean, I know Alex Brink said it a few different times on the radio call. There was a direct correlation between us moving the ball on offense and Kyle Williams touching the football. And when he wasn't touching the football, our offense stalled out. It does frustrate me a little bit that he should have really been the center of our offense this last season.
100%. We just underutilized him. You wonder how Ben Arbuckle got coaxed Oklahoma into hiring him. I mean, jeez Louise. I mean, look, Kyle Williams is, I hope he creeps up that draft board much further than what we hear that he probably will be, because he was just underutilized. And any NFL scout that's out there is going to know that wherever you get him beyond the second round is going to be a steal. And we're happy for him because we know that he's going to be something special for any NFL team. Now, do we hope that he stays here in our home state of Washington? Yes, we do. Go Seahawks. But at the same time, I think no matter where he ends up, he's going to do great things. And I'm excited because he showed everything that he was and wasn't utilized for while at Washington State. And again, wish him the best of luck.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. Recently, San Diego State Athletic Director J.D. Wicker slipped up talking at a season ticket holder event, basically kind of unintentionally giving some key insights to the potential media deal for the Pac-12. He does confirm that there's a media deal will come before expansion, and all of that kind of came out and unfolded. Drew, tell me, what do you think? I mean, I was kind of excited to hear before it was supposed to be press release, but
yeah. I'm sure these comments and the video being posted stopped the hearts of some of the Pac-12, the new Pac-12 presidents, because this is the type of thing when you're in negotiations that you don't want coming out, that you plan on wrapping these things up at a certain time. But yeah, as a fan, I love the transparency. I'm sure the season ticket holders that he was speaking to love the transparency. I think one thing to point out that was important is that he did say that this will be entities that you are familiar with and that you will recognize. And he also stated that it will lead to increased exposure across all sports. So that leads me to think a couple of things. One, you're probably dealing with one of the big players. You're probably dealing with a CBS, a Fox, an ESPN. The other thing is it also means that I believe that we'll be leveraging Pac-12 enterprises as a way to produce some of those events for maybe a women's basketball, baseball, track and field, that kind of thing. So all of that I like to hear for sure.
Yeah, I think if we can do that with Pac-12, I want to see that, because any kind of extra exposure that we can give these athletes that are certainly in these, most of the time with less exposure, all these kids deserve that. I say kids, but young adults deserve that, ladies and men. And I think it'll be healthy, right? We can get the big deals for the likes of basketball and football, and have Pac-12 enterprises manage kind of the rest. Then I think you're kind of leaning into something that's a little bit more exclusive, and you're shifting your mindset on how the market needs to be viewed. So
yeah,
ultimately it's fun.
If I'm being honest, obviously we've talked about this before, it's going to go to the highest bidder. But if I'm being honest, I really hope it's not ESPN. And here's why.
Yeah. Tell me more, Drew.
ESPN has so many different things in its inventory right now. I really feel like we would be sort of an afterthought in the Pac-12 ESPN. And I'm also, after this basketball season, so sick of ESPN Plus. It's terrible. It is so bad. And the way some of these games, I've literally watched high school games be produced better. Now, I do think our team at Washington State, when we play at home, those, the team that puts those on does a fantastic job. But some of these games where we've had to watch them on the road, is specifically even like this last game, it was just like, man, have these guys ever announced the basketball game before? I mean, they were mispronouncing all the names. It was brutal.
So a lot of people were upset with the announcer for Pepperdine last night. You saw it on the message board. He's a little bit older gentleman. I forget his name right now, but I will say this relative to his commentary. He promoted Washington State, and what a lot of people forget is he stated things like, only roughly 75 miles from Spokane, a tuition of $13,000. And people are like, well, I don't want to hear that. Well, those that are kind of tuning in as just outliers are hearing something. It's like dangling little bits of information in front of people. Tell me more about Washington State. Guess what? That's a good thing for our institution. Do I think his voice was the easiest to listen to? No. But come on, guys, you have to realize certain things. He was smart around the game of basketball. He wasn't terrible with everything. Again, did he know all our players' names the right way? No, but that's okay. But that's what phonetic spelling is supposed to be for when you hand these guys the sheets. They're supposed to be able to read the phonetic spelling.
Right.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. What that tells me is he read the Wikipedia page before the game started, and that was about it.
Hey, that's not a bad thing. Good job, announcer for ESPN Plus last night.
No, anyways, I really think CBS or a Fox would be a great partner. That's who was the Mountain West previous relationship, was that combination, and I wouldn't be upset. I mean, I think CBS Sports does a pretty solid job, and obviously having the biggest games beyond Fox would be pretty good exposure for both men's hoops and football.
Yeah, I don't think that CBS wants to get away from Boise State because they do see a market there that they really like. And bringing in the likes of Washington State, which we know has great viewers, right? We watch a lot of our games. And even San Diego State, Oregon State, all these other schools, I think CBS, I hope that they're, the major player there along with Fox Sports, as you just stated. And looking forward to later this month finding out what that deal looks like.
Yep. One other thing to mention on the media rights front, and as far as the new conference goes, there was a new Bill of Rights signed. I did not personally go through the whole thing. You did not personally go through the whole thing, but our boy John Canzano did. And the one thing that he noticed is that in order for any conference matter to be decided, the vote has to be 6 out of the 8 schools vote in favor of whatever the change is. But the caveat is Wazoo and Oregon State have to be 2 of those 6 schools that sign off of it. So at least for the foreseeable future, the conference runs through Washington State and Oregon State.
I think you're the remaining Pac-12 brand that's still there. I'm sure in some respects, some of these other schools and their newspaper articles might write, well, this doesn't seem fair, this and that. We were the outliers. We were left in the dust. And, I think it's only right, given that what we were able to do even legally with the likes of the Pac-12 deal for, Oregon. We got $50 million, right? For the next 2 years when Oregon or any other previous Pac-12 school goes to the college football playoff and plays in the Rose Bowl, we get the money.
Yep.
We should have the same kind of rights to put that type of thought process in, because we had the legal counsel to help us get that money and make sure that we weren't left without anything.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think it's a nice little reward for us, to your point, saving the Pac-12 brand. And I think one of the things that protects us from that I would be concerned about is that as the new teams coming from the West sort of forming some sort of coalition when it comes to decision making against Washington State and Oregon State. I don't necessarily see them acting in bad faith in that way, but it keeps that from being an issue, at least for the foreseeable future.
Right.
All right, and real quick, we just want to mention Cougar baseball finally getting in the win column, and 3 times in a row they did it, winning 3 out of 4 at Iowa. So good to see them get in the win column and maybe start to turn this season around. Who knows?
Yeah, and their first game at home is March 7th. And if you guys don't already know, our very next special guest, is none other than Tara Wallach from the women's basketball team. Tune in as we will have another episode with her this week. We are so excited to have her on.
Oh, it's going to be great. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Fieldhouse Report. We really appreciate all of our listeners tuning in and giving us a listen. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment. We want to hear your opinions. Who do you hope the Cougs' new media rights deal is with? What do you think of our chances in the WCC tournament for both men's and women's hoops? Start the conversation down below. Thanks again, and go Cougs.
Go Cougs.